Good evening and welcome to the 553rd episode of Travel It Radio. I'm Dan Schlossberg along with my friend and producer Roger Noriega, and we are in the 13th season of Travel It Radio, the show that lets you enjoy the pleasures of travel from the comfort of your armchair.
Every week at this time, we talk to people representing destinations, hotels, airlines, railroads, car rental companies, and others in the world of travel and hospitality, from authors and bloggers to broadcasters and publicists. If it's got anything to do with travel, it's got everything to do with Travel It's Radio.
And our guest tonight is Marco Wendt, Animal Ambassador for the San Diego Zoo Wildlife Alliance. Did I get that right?
You got it right.
Welcome, Marco, to Travel It Radio.
Thank you very much, Dan and Roger. Really appreciate the opportunity, and hello to all our guests. Thank you so much.
I love the San Diego Zoo, as I told you off mic, and have visited several times, but it's actually part of something much bigger called Balboa Park. Please tell our viewers what they can find there.
Yeah, a little backstory. I'm a native San Diegan and grew up in my beautiful town here in Southern California. We're a border city. We have beautiful coastlines, mountains, and deserts. Balboa Park, to me, it's often referred to as San Diego Central Park, if you know New York. And everything growing up, I enjoyed the numerous museums, from art to photography, sculpture, human culture as well, which is always a fun thing to do, connecting with humanity from all over the world. And of course, all the wonderful people that visit San Diego, from aerospace to car museums. I mean, the list goes on and on. Dan, you and I were talking about a little earlier. One of my favorite spots actually is the park side. So in Balboa Park, you have the more performance aspect, right, where you can find the entrance of the San Diego Zoo. You can find some of our theater aspects and some of the museums. You go across the bridge to our beautiful dog park, and there's a wonderful stretch of green grass and lovely trees. And it's just, you enjoy the San Diego weather, and it's definitely a must-see for San Diego.
The zoo is like a wedding, something old, something new, something borrowed, and something blue. Let's start with some history. How old is the San Diego Zoo, and how and when did it get started?
Yeah, so the San Diego Zoo is a little over 100 years old. And just to reference for everyone, overall, we're called San Diego Zoo Wildlife Alliance. That's our organization. We're an international nonprofit international organization. And we have two conservation parks, the San Diego Zoo and the Safari Park. So the San Diego Zoo in the heart of San Diego is a little over 100 years old, opened up around 1916. So this over 100 years of conservation stories. So behind you, Dan, you have an image of the entrance to the San Diego Zoo with the lion named Rex. Now, the beginning of the zoo says it all began with a roar. Dr. Wentworth, our founders, they got inspired by this thunderous roar of a lion during an exposition that happened in the early 1900s in Balboa Park, and that triggered that hope and that creativity that we need to create something for the children of San Diego and Balboa Park, and lo and behold, the San Diego Zoo was born.
We hear the latest something new is called Elephant Valley. What's that all about?
Yeah, well, again, you remember we had two conservation parks in San Diego, the San Diego Zoo, where you're showing a little of the entrance behind you, and you're referencing a new habitat that's going to happen at the San Diego Zoo Safari Park. And this is where I grew up. I'm a zookeeper and animal trainer over 26 years of experience working with wildlife in our beautiful conservation park in the town of Escondido, called the Safari Park. In the past, it was referred to as the Wild Animal Park. If you had some guests, maybe who've been there in the past. It's gone through a couple names, but it's still a vibrant 1,800-acre conservation park. And our new elephant habitat is getting redone, modified. It's going to be epic. Wonderful interactions for our guests and for our vibrant herd of African elephants.
Does a benign Southern California climate keep animals comfortable all year? And how about guests?
I think so. I mean, I make the joke of our friends who visit from the East Coast that, we handle 80-degree weather with a bright sun really well, better than most people, I think, in the United States. But no, joking aside, our climate is wonderful. Much of our climate is also very similar to certain continents where we have a lot of wildlife. For instance, Africa and Australia have very similar terrains, and depending on what the topography and what areas we're talking about. So a lot of the wildlife has very similar climates. Now, some do have to be adaptable, right? We have polar bears at the San Diego Zoo, but there's certain behavioral nuances. For instance, they don't have to eat the poundage of fat that animal fat to be the bulky bears that they need to be during the long winters, right? So there are adaptations that our animals can do. And of course, we are world class at what we do with the wildlife care. So we have expert heaters and misters and shade structures and heating rocks, depending on the species. So we definitely accommodate the species to their natural environment as best we can.
We're talking with Marco Wendt, Wildlife Ambassador of the San Diego Zoo Wildlife Alliance.
When we say more, we mean the San Diego Zoo Wildlife Alliance. Exactly what is that, and how did it come into being?
Yeah, again, it's an international organization. We're over 100 years of projects, and I remind people we're more than just a 2 conservation parks. So again, we're an international organization with over 200 collaborators around the world. Yeah. So we have what's called 8 conservation hubs around the world. So for instance, we have focused conservation programs with plants and animals, with communities as well in areas like the Amazon, to the Hawaiian Islands, to the savannas of Africa, to the forests of Australia, to the jungles of Asia, and also the polar oceans as well. We're doing work with the polar bear. And of course, also the killer whale. So it's an expansive network of team members, and this organization works with so many different partners. There's something that we say that conservation always begins with people, and only with collaboration can we really make a positive impact. We are very fortunate to have the support of our community in San Diego, but we can't do it alone. So again, all these partners allow us to do really impactful work around the world.
You mentioned this a bit, but to be a bit more specific, how did you start your career with San Diego Wildlife Alliance?
Yeah,
San Diego Zoo Wildlife Alliance. I'm sorry, Marco.
That's okay. There's it's an interesting story. I'm a native San Diegan. I joined a job fair when I was 16 years old, Escondido High. The job title said nectar eating animals, and that referred to what I thought was butterflies, because there's a butterfly jungle experience at the safari. Great, but it wasn't that. It was a bird called the lorikeet, a bird from Papua New Guinea that actually eats the nectar of flowers. So I started there, 16, and my background was different than most people. I actually learned everything working my way up through the company. So I've been in behavior department as an animal trainer, to the bird department as a zookeeper, and also throughout my entire time within the Alliance at the safari park, I was also doing a lot of media in front of the camera. A lot of us wildlife care specialists, that's a term we use now, by the way. I'm zookeeper or wildlife care specialist, so I'll probably end up using that more just so our guests are aware. So as a wildlife care specialist, we do a lot of news from time to time. I wouldn't be so bad at it, so I would do a lot of it. I'd also do it all in Spanish to represent our organization. So a couple of years ago, they created a new position, and I graciously accepted as the spokesperson for San Diego Zoo Wildlife Alliance. So now I'm the wildlife ambassador, and try to connect people with all the amazing wildlife that we have here.
Since you worked your way up, instead of human resources, were you in zoo resources? I know, Marco. Sorry, that was lame.
Something I do tell people, because everyone wants to be, working with wildlife. It's an amazing job, and I say, regardless of what you are trying to do with your life, especially if there's any kids listening right now, the number one thing is just find out what you love to do. And for me, it's wildlife and connecting with people. So I found the perfect career, and working for an organization like ours, like a big city. So we have people like our CEO to marketing, we have a social media department, of course, our wildlife care specialists and riders. But just an example that, there's so many opportunities for people to get involved in conservation within our organization.
How would you describe the San Diego Zoo and Safari Park?
I don't often use the word it's a gem, but in this particular instance, I say it's a gem of San Diego. Again, I'm a native San Diegan. I definitely have my spots in this beautiful county that are mine, that I love, that I may or may not share during this interview. But I will say the one main spot for me, the zoo and the safari park for San Diego, for the millions of people to come visit us every single year, and San Diego alone, I might add, from our other wildlife organizations, to beautiful mountains, to deserts, of course, our vibrant beaches, and the communities that we have here, right? It's epic. And where else can you get amazing Mexican food other than my mom's house or down in Mexico, just across the way, right? But San Diego Zoo and Safari Park, it's a must do when you're visiting San Diego. It is like going out in Africa. When you go to the watering hole at the safari park and you walk out and you look at our 90 plus acre habitat of herds of giraffe and rhino running in front of you. More often than not, when I take people to that spot, they end up tearing up and crying because they're so just blown away by the connectivity of it. And these are the things that we offer at the zoo and the safari park. There's these incredible moments every day. And all you have to do is just take the initiative and just get a ticket and walk in that zoo or that safari park, and you're going to have just an amazing adventure.
Asking an author what is his favorite book is very tough. Asking you what is your favorite animal, I imagine, is just as tough. Do you have one?
It's very easy. The answer has not changed in a very long time, sir. Yeah.
Oh.
My background, again, I've worked with a variety of wildlife, from reptiles to insects to mammals, birds, etc. Birds are definitely my specialty, and in particular, raptors, so eagles and hawks and falcons and owls, and also vultures. I love those kind of birds. My favorite bird is called a crested gada, or kara kara, if you can't roll your R. It's a falcon that looks like a hawk, but it acts like a vulture. Super unique animal. You can find them in southwestern United States. And the very southern tips of San Diego, we've seen one or two fly over the border from Mexico, also found in Central America. They got a name, gada, because the vocal, they go, and they go.
Yes.
So I definitely recommend your listeners to check it out on Google, on Siri, whatever you got going on, and look at crested kara, and you're going to look at a very cool bird.
That is cool. Appreciate that. Let me switch a little bit. What is a conversion hub, and why are there 8 of them?
Oh, the conservation hubs. Yeah, now the 8 hubs, we try to spend as much as we can around the world. So there's a term that I like to use, that we use, called flagship species. So the best example I would say is our conservation hub in Africa in the savanna habitat. So we have flagship species, keystone species that we do conservation work. For instance, the elephant is one, and that hub. Also the giraffe, the lion as an example. So these are particular species like an elephant. Let's stick with that species. So by helping out a herd of elephants, you're going to not only help out that particular herd, you're also helping out all the variety of animals that rely on elephants to do what they do. Elephants interact with the landscape. Sometimes they move trees around or boulders. They create dugouts in the earth. They create water sources for our wildlife in drought situations. So elephants are crucial. So that's just I can get way into the weeds with it. That's a small example of the animals that we try to focus on to be able to help out in a greater sense. The most exciting one, I can hint a little bit for you, but not give you an arrival date, would be our giant pandas that are now coming this year to the San Diego Zoo, which I'm sure a lot of you are excited about. We are very, very fortunate and very gracious with our partners in China to be able to showcase these animals. So again, that is a flagship species. In that Asia hub, in the Asia hub in general, where the giant panda is located, you have other animals like the Asiatic black bear or the red panda or the takin. There's a variety of other species out there. Ibis as well, a little benefit by helping out on the giant panda. So the 8 focus on areas globally around the world. So for instance, I mentioned Amazonia, African savanna, African forest, Australian forest, the Asia hub, the polar oceans, or oceans in general, I should say, oceans, Pacific Islands, and my favorite is here called the Southwest. So for your listeners, just so you know, if you're a native San Diegan or from Southern California, this particular region in Southern California and northern Baja California is one of the most endangered habitats in the United States. It's a unique coastal sagebrush habitat. It's not found anywhere else in the world, everyone. So I know sometimes when you're stuck in traffic and you're looking at those beautiful hillsides and the sage and the cactus, and just know that is such a unique habitat that's only found here in San Diego. So be proud of that and know that we're doing work. And for instance, right now we're showing you a map of the San Diego Zoo. So whether it be the zoo or the safari park, these projects are not only involving animals like the giant panda or the African elephant, but also local species. We've helped out orphan mountain lion cubs recently, as an example. We have a brand new study with the threatened rattlesnake, the red diamondback rattlesnake. So this is new technology and new programs that are happening in our own backyard. The safari park is 1,800 acres, and half of that park is saved for local wildlife. So we can protect our local species that can't be found anywhere else on the planet.
And it's impressive to know where it's located in San Diego, yes. Without getting too repetitious, how are the hubs connected with the 2 conservation parks in San Diego?
Yeah, that's the beauty of it, friend. And Dan and I were talking about it earlier. I think we were thinking of a question. If I would compare our zoos to other zoos, and I never really like to do that because all these zoos do a lot of work globally with so many partners. So, for instance, those 8 conservation hubs that I mentioned connects our guests to the wildlife around the world, but also to the wildlife that live in our vibrant zoos and safari park. For instance, a safari park, there's about 12,000 animals that live there. It represents 650 species, 1.3 million plants. And there's work that we can do in our conservation parks that directly works with wildlife. So for instance, this wonderful picture of one of our tours that we can offer for our guests to get up close and personal with a zebra ambassador. People get excited. We want people to get inspired by Mother Nature. Because when people get inspired, it sparks hopefully emotion and empathy. They want to hopefully do something more for wildlife. And the easiest thing, which is great for everyone visiting San Diego, just come to the zoo, come to the safari park. Being a nonprofit, by buying a toy, for instance, or enjoying a lovely meal, and the food is amazing, by the way, you're helping out in conservation projects worldwide. You can go on our flight length safari, go on a zip line, one of the longest in the United States. You can watch a rhino take a bath in the water. That's one of our greater one-horned rhinos at Safari Park. Get behind a safari truck, and we take you into our 90+ acre habitats and see herds of rhino, herds of giraffe, but all these experiences. I recommend for both our conservation parks, it's going to be sdzsafaripark.org for the safari park and sandiegozoo.org for the San Diego Zoo. Now, there are certain species you can find in one place or the other. So if you're, for instance, a polar bear fan, you want to go to the San Diego Zoo. If you're a platypus fan, well, you want to go to the safari park. And it's the only place outside of Australia where you can see a platypus is in our vibrant safari park. So again, there's so much to offer, and all of this is connected. And also, our work that our wildlife care specialists do. For instance, we can get much closer with an animal like a lion or a polar bear at our zoo than we can out into the wild. So there's been programs. For instance, I'll give you a quick one because I know we have more we want to talk about. Is a program that we're trying to figure out how many calories a polar bear burns when they're traveling great distances out in the wild, especially with climate change and reduction of ice, because they need ice to hunt. You can't do that with a wild polar bear, right? So our specialists, with the relationship they had with our polar bears, our orphan polar bears on that ad, and we gave them a home. We were able to put them and train them to go on basically almost like a treadmill you go on at the gym, and it would monitor their heart rate. So that study that was done in San Diego Zoo, when guests come to the zoo, they're helping out with that study, and that is helping out polar bears out into the wild. So that's just one of hundreds of stories like that, friends. So it's like taking travel with a purpose, I think, is the theme here for us at San Diego Zoo Wildlife Alliance, right? There's a little more meaning behind your visits when you come with us.
Along that, what can a person do to become an ally for conservation?
It's a strong word, I know. And there's so many things people can do. I tell
It's just
people,
water.
it's all right. What I tell all guests, whether you're 1 or 100, everyone can do something for the earth. As cheesy as it may sound, I know we all have an opportunity to make a positive impact, right? So becoming an ally directly with us, it's becoming a member. If you come to the zoo or the park twice in the year, it's the same cost as becoming a member. So you might as well become a member, especially for the locals. My friends and I, we would go when the park and the zoo are open later. Right now we're having nighttime too, by the way, at the San Diego Zoo. So the park and the zoo is open until 9 o'clock. So all these different events from music and different shows as well. There's a lot more that a zoo can offer also. But again, these are opportunities for people to help with these conservation aspects.
Thank you for that. Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, we're talking with Marco Wendt about the San Diego Zoo and more, including Balboa Park.
And personally, Marco, I believe animals are nicer than people. In your opinion, though, tell us why and how zoos and aquariums matter. What lessons do they teach?
The histories of zoos are very interesting, right? But at this point, what I tell people is, just speaking as a wildlife care specialist alone, I would have gladly been out of the job if we knew our wildlife had the homes, the ecosystems that they needed to thrive out there in the wild. That is the goal. We want animal populations to be stable. Diversity is a very important thing. So these days, I think zoos do so much more than just showcase wildlife. I mentioned the 8 conservation hubs, right? I mentioned the projects that are done at the zoo and the park that help out wildlife around the world. But also there's a concept I want to bring up right now for this particular question called One Health. So it's a concept here, especially during the pandemic, which we've all experienced. This was a global situation, right? All human beings were connected with this event. And it's hiding with Mother Nature, right? A human-wildlife conflict, human beings encroaching into areas of wildlife that perhaps maybe we shouldn't happen. These things tend to happen in the wild, right? Cross contamination diseases. One Health, basically. And what this is by helping out certain conservation initiatives around the world, we're going to help out with communities. So instead of going into an area, please don't hunt this animal. It's not really effective technique when you're trying to work with people around the world. Again, community starts with people. People are important. There's a line that I use every single day, and that is that a healthy ecosystem, it's a diversity of plants, of animals, and that includes human beings, that all people in the world are connected to these endeavors. So back to that elephant scenario I gave you, by being a flagship species, right? We also work with communities there. Now, for instance, agriculture is very important for a lot of communities. Families growing their crops. Now, it's going to be very difficult for a family if a herd of elephants comes in one morning and starts munching on all their yummy yams or cassava fruit, whatever it may be, or vegetable, and that can be detrimental for that community. You don't want that to happen. They need to feed their families. But we also got to help out the elephant, right? So there was a quick study that was done with partners in Africa, biologists, who were observing a herd of elephants one day. And an elephant ran really close to a tree, made a funny, small alert sound, and backed away. And the biologists were like, what happened there? They get a little bit closer, and they find out that elephants are not a fan of bees. So what had happened was this elephant got very close to this tree, heard the buzzing of the bee, and moved away. Now think about what that just meant. Now they figured this out. So what we are trying to do with the program is sunflowers and communities where we can not only help out bee populations, which are devastated, by the way, encourage these hives along, say, fence lines and properties of agriculture and families. The elephants, it's not a terribly negative experience because they hear the buzzing of the bees and they think, you know what, I'm not going to walk through that farm. Instead, I'm going to walk this way instead. And it helps the elephants, right? The bees benefit as well, and the people still maintain their livelihood. So that's a very long answer, but there's so much now that zoos and aquariums can do. And the side note, especially during the pandemic, we realized, I'm sure a lot of global people realize how important Mother Nature is, how quickly we all needed to go outside and feel the sunshine in our face. We were going to offer programs during the pandemic to showcase wildlife. A lot of our animals were missing our guests as well. I was there working at the safari park, taking care of Australia area birds. The cassowaries under my care. One of them named Maka. He really loved interacting with people, and he missed seeing the guests every day. So I would clean up do my duties of the day, and during my lunchtime, I would sit in front of the viewing window next to the cassowaries, just spending time with them. But it just shows you the connectivity, right? And this is what we're offering in San Diego, and of course here at the San Diego Zoo and Safari Park.
Well, since we mentioned aquariums, does the San Diego Zoo have marine life? I know it certainly has proximity to marine life of all kinds in Mission Bay and the Pacific Ocean.
Yeah, so our projects are very extensive. That's our let's in quotations, heavy quotations, marine rhino, right? But our rhinos love to wallow. Now, I did mention our 8 conservation hubs. One of them is the oceans. So in our oceans hub, we're doing work with, say, the African penguin as an example, and you can see some of that work being done when you go to Africa Rocks at the San Diego Zoo. We also mentioned all the consistent work we're doing with the polar bears, and that's collaboration with Polar Bear International. We're also doing work with killer whales as well. Now, this is a very top predator, the apex predator of our oceans, and they need a lot of protection also. And, I also want to point out, I want to share love to other organizations that we have in San Diego. We do a lot of great work too, but kudos and props to our partners, the Birch Aquarium, a lot of amazing work out there. SeaWorld also does a lot of work with local marine life too, and rehabilitation as well. So I just want to remind people about San Diego. Right now you're seeing a beautiful picture of Balboa Park. That's one of my favorite pools, by the way. Just sit down and just get the vibe and the essence of what San Diego is. San Diego is a rich, vibrant community. My family's from Mexico. I'm first generation born here on San Diego. And there's a rich Latin community here, as well as other rich, beautiful people from around the world that are thriving here. So definitely, I recommend some good Mexican food. And everyone has their own that they would recommend. You know, mine is, of course, my mom's kitchen. But other than that, I'm sure you can find your own and really enjoy yourselves out there.
I'm curious, does the San Diego Zoo depend upon donations, or does it make enough money to support itself to the price of parking tickets and concessions?
Yeah, I do like to remind people. Sometimes, people come in or buy soda or drink, and I remind them like this is shopping with a purpose. We're a nonprofit organization, so we rely heavily on the support of our community, and so even the purchase of a ticket can help me out. So I tell people, we all come from different walks of life. I again grew up in an immigrant family, very low income, and we could maybe visit the park and the zoo maybe twice in my time as a child. And that just shows the inaccessibility at the time. So we're trying to offer more accessibility for people of all walks of life, right? So for instance, we have October Kids Free Month is really exciting. I love it because a lot of the schools from Tijuana, they come up and they're able to enjoy the safari park in the San Diego Zoo. A lot of communities around the world take advantage of that time too for the month of October. There's other partners, I can't remember others top of my head, but in San Diego community, if you look that up, there'll be other partners referenced during that, and especially in Balboa Park as well. But again, we're just trying to offer these experiences, being the nonprofit that we are, again, being a member, just walking through our gates. If you can do more, our donors are amazing. Again, I'd say whatever feels right for you to be part in our conservation efforts, please do so. And even you kids out there, even just getting excited, going outside, feeling the sun on your face, put the phone down, go outside, breathe some fresh air, go walk in the trail, and remember what we're about. We're a wild animal too. Guys, we need to be out in Mother Nature.
You're watching Travelwitch Radio, now in our 13th season with Dan Schlossberg and Roger Noriega. Check us out on iTunes, LinkedIn, Instagram, or the Travelwitch Radio Facebook page, among other places. And we are talking with Marco Wendt about the San Diego Zoo Wildlife Alliance and more.
You mentioned the concessions. Is there food with an animal theme?
Yeah, there is. Our chefs are amazing. I know Chef Zaz down at the San Diego Zoo. She's an artiste, and the things that she comes up with is amazing. And she grew up in Tijuana, so she's got that vibrant Latin culture, and you can taste it in that delicious food. So if we're talking the San Diego Zoo, I wanted to point out Albert's is really the place to go. Now, this place is to eat all over the San Diego Zoo, but Albert's is a piece de resistance. So if you want to really experience good culinary delights, and again, eating with a purpose, right? Helping out in conservation efforts. Well, then go to Albert's. I recommend you trying to get a reservation right before the entrance of the zoo. And that'll help you out for your day. And Chef Grant is amazing and will come up with delightful, delectable treats and also really interesting cocktails, I might add. For instance, at the watering hole for the safari park, that's my number one recommendation down there. The best view, I think, one of the best views of San Diego is the watering hole overlooking our East African habitat, where you can kick back. You can enjoy a macaw michelada or a Serengeti sunset, and go see a rhino over a backdrop of beautiful giraffes, walking about. It's like no place on earth, so I highly recommend it.
What are some of the more exotic animals in the San Diego Zoo? I know you mentioned panda bears as well, but you've had koala bears, for example. But what about penguins and flamingos? No one's talking about flamingos.
Oh, right. I love me some flamingos. I'm from the bird department. It is all about the birds. I am a bee geek, a bird nerd, an avian avenger, and I tell you what, we do projects with our flamingos from around the world. It could be our Caribbean flamingos. It could be the lesser or greater flamingos from Africa. Those species definitely need some conservation support as well. And there's a vibrancy of species all over the world that you're able to showcase, from the Mongolian wild horse from the plains of Mongolia, to red-breasted geese from Russia, to the jaguar of South America, to a lot of kids are a big fan of the axolotl or apolote or axolotl, however you want to pronounce it. It's a very popular salamander from Mexico, and you can see it at Wildlife Explorers Base Camp at the San Diego Zoo. So honestly, the nuances of wildlife, and I could go on with more of the animals, but I want to remind our guests too that the plant life needs just as much support from our partners, and we do a lot of work around the world. So go to our orchid house at the San Diego Zoo. The carnivorous bog gardens are one of my favorites, and learn about all the different carnivorous diverse plant species around the world. We have a lula. It's called the cabbage on a stick. This is a functionally extinct plant that was once on the coastlines of Hawaii and Niihau in the Hawaiian Islands. And we have this species we can go see and see the vibrancy of this beautiful plant in our Hawaiian Gardens area at the San Diego Zoo. And know that that's also a conservation program helping out with other parties to make sure this beautiful plant doesn't disappear. So, I mean, I could just keep going on, Fred, but there is projects galore, and all it takes is people to get a little bit inspired and just come visit us and have a good time.
Does the zoo appeal to people of all ages?
100%. I mentioned a little bit earlier, but just a reminder, let's say you're all about adventure. Well, we got tours for you. For instance, we have our Twilight tour of the Safari Park. You had a safari truck. You can go into our plains area and see wildlife like rhinos and elephants. But then the sun sets, and you get to have access where the rest of the guests have to go, but not you. You get to stay. And when the sun sets, the park, it's amazing. It's like my favorite time of day besides sunrise is sunset. And this tour gives you that opportunity to see an aspect of our beautiful 1,800-acre safari park. And we also take you through our native mountain lion habitat. And if you cross your fingers, you might see a glimpse at this amazing predator. And these are 3 cubs, by the way, that we are able to offer a sanctuary here at the San Diego Zoo Safari Park. So that's one adventure tour. I mentioned the flight line, the zip line tour as well. We also, for the non-adventure people as well, I'm all about just nice narrow vibes, a nice quiet spot. So there's a lot of areas for people who maybe need a little less stimulus, so we do programs with that as well. If you go into our guest relations office, if there's a certain aspect of stimulus you want to try to avoid, we have quiet zones around the park and the San Diego Zoo. The Bonsai Garden is one of my favorites at the park. It could be Fern Canyon at the San Diego Zoo. So again, you can find your quiet moments to just connect. You can find your moments for adventure. And maybe even if you're a little younger, a little more excitement, spring breakers out there as well. There's a lot of fun tours. For you couples out there, Father's Day is coming up. We have a mimosa tour. You can go out in a safari truck, go out to the plains area, have a nice mimosa in the early morning, and just see how the park opens up and just wakes up out there in the San Luis Valley.
Would you say the San Diego Zoo is the number one reason visitors come to San Diego, or is the climate still the main attraction?
Wow, man, that's a hard one, sir. I want to say it's the community. I know all my partners behind me are like, say the San Diego Zoo. No, but that's a part of the answer as well. All of it is part of that. There's something about San Diego, and again, being a native San Diegan, I can speak to it. We have a vibe, you guys. I mean, there's a reason people from LA come down to San Diego during the weekend. Just want to point that out. So I need our guests who have not come to San Diego to really experience the vibrancy of the beautiful people that live here, and of course of our conservation parks. There is a reason why we have 2 conservation parks here in San Diego. It's because of the community. So I definitely want to give kudos to that, of people from all over, all walks of life, just enjoy one day in San Diego. This is my favorite day, by the way. I'll give you guys my favorite day in San Diego is waking up in the desert in Noriega, seeing the vibrancy of the morning of the desert, driving over the mountain in Julian, having a nice cup of coffee, some delicious Julian pie. You drive down to the valley to the safari park, get to see some vibrant animals like the Sumatra tiger, and from there have some beautiful lunch, and then head on over to the coast and watch the sunset. And you travel from the deserts to the mountains, to the valleys, to the oceans, and just had a beautiful feel of what San Diego is about.
Having been to Balboa Park, I know there's more than 20 different buildings and facilities in Balboa Park, with everything from Mexican settlement to perennial all-star and batting champion Tony Gwynn of the San Diego Padres.
Yeah, it's a beautiful area, sir. Again, the diversity of what we offer. Earlier in the interview, I mentioned the Aerospace Museum, the cars, the Photography Museum. I love art and our Museum of Man. It's epic. There's so many different things from educational angles. You just want to enjoy a nice brunch outside. Earlier, I mentioned to Dan here, one of my favorite things to do with my husband is to go to Little Italy, to a restaurant called Mona Lisa. I'm going to let you guys a little secret. They got the best sandwiches. You get a nice cold or hot sandwich, whatever you want to get. Grab yourself a nice refreshment, grab some friends, your dogs, and just go to the park side of Balboa Park and just spend the whole day there and just watch the city just cruise on by cross in front of you, and you're just going to have the best San Diego day.
Can you give us a quick rundown, the Reader's Digest version of what visitors can find in Balboa Park?
Balboa Park, it's that connectivity from the outdoors to the vibrancy architecture to the history of San Diego. You mentioned some of the Spanish architecture. Now, my family's from Mexico, and I also like to point out for areas of the San Diego Zoo Safari Park, they're on the native land of the Kunai and the Samposwell Band of Mission Indians. So it's not only the history of the colonizing cultures of Europe, but also the indigenous communities that have been vibrant and thriving here in the lands of San Diego for hundreds and hundreds of years, to delicious Mexican food, to the delicious aromas of eucalyptus trees, where you can hear a lion roar and maybe even hear a sonnet from our beautiful theater area and Shakespearean plays being presented. It offers so much. So please, when you come visit us in San Diego, know you can do touring with a purpose. You can help out wildlife and communities around the world. You can enjoy delicious food. You can see art. You can see entertainment. You can just breathe. And that's so much that we offer in Balboa Park.
How much time should a visitor allow if he or she wants to sample everything in the park?
Ooh, I say, if it was me, sir, I would say give a 2-day. I kind of separate Balboa Park from me. Actually, no, I'm going to say 3 days. I'm going to say 1 day at the San Diego Zoo is a must, right? The second day, you should go to the architecture, the museums, the Museum of Man, and just go through all those amazing areas and just get inspired. It's epic, a beautiful gardens too, I might add. Maybe even catch a play that evening as well at the Old Globe Theater. And the third day, I'm all about just taking it easy, right? So again, get those sandwiches at Mona Lisa. Get your beverage, get your buddies, grab a soccer ball, put on some suntan, put on a hat, get a blanket, and just enjoy the park for the day. Just breathe.
For people with limited time, would you recommend the Old Town Trolley, which has a jump on, jump off city highlights tour that includes the zoo?
Oh, 100%. Yeah, I've seen many guests actually. So maybe if you're not the most mobile human being, or maybe you just want to walk around, that's okay too. There's that opportunity as well. And I've seen many guests, explore our zoo grounds and then enter the Balboa Park area, get onto this tram as you suggested, and then get a little more of the touring aspect. So there's many different nuances and many different ways for you to experience San Diego.
We're talking with Marco Wendt about the San Diego Zoo and more.
Marco, we know your climate is conducive to vacationing 12 months of the year, but do you have peak and bargain seasons for people watching their wallets?
Well, I think it depends on the individual, right? I mean, there's so many things throughout the year that we can offer here in San Diego County. If budgeting is a concern, which is for a lot of people, that's just the reality of the world. Remember, I mentioned earlier we have October's Kids Free Month, and that could be a wonderful time. You can go and enjoy a nice, moderate hotel, a beautiful vista in our community here, and go visit the San Diego Zoo for any kids 11 and under, absolutely free. And you get to explore all the beautiful nuances of the farm. So there's different events like that we can offer throughout. I would say just check on our website, and it changes throughout the year, whether it be spring, summer, fall, and winter, from our holiday seasons as well, right, to the vibrancy of spring. Every season is unique and different in San Diego. If you're asking me to get in the water, because I don't like cold water, so for me, September is the time to get into the Pacific Ocean for me. So if you're thinking the warmer water area, there's that. Don't forget, we also have our children's pool. You can see the vibrancy of native wildlife of our seals as well. So there's so much to see, guys. So it's really, I say, what inspires you, what drives your passions, and gear your experiences through San Diego that way.
Are there places people can stay near the park?
At the San Diego Zoo and Safari Park, you'll find some areas as well. Now, remember the Safari Park, though, is going to be in the town of Escondido, so just want to point that out. So make sure you look on the maps. San Diego community, it's a very large area. I'm a local, and we tend to say downtown as the local center area of San Diego County. And we have an area that we often refer to as North County, and that's where I grew up. So for instance, when people ask me my favorite beaches, every beach is a little different. I'm particular to the North County beaches. The San Diego beaches, and I'm talking from, say, La Jolla all the way down to Imperial Beach, they're really amazing. Each one's a little different, got that great San Diego vibe. But for that sort of like laid back local vibe, I highly recommend beaches from Del Mar to Oceanside. And each one, again, is a little bit different, but it's just a vibe. It's just a vibe, friend. When you go, you know.
Yeah.
Are there special places for children at the San Diego Zoo?
Oh, everything that we do is for children. I mean, I love that question because, we ourselves, us as adults, we're experiencing these things. We want our future generations to have vibrant wildlife, to have green plants, right? Fresh air, clean water. So all these projects that we do is for the children of the world. And if you're looking for a really unique area in particular, I will say that there's different areas in the zoo and the safari park. One jumps out in general called Wildlife Explorers Base Camp. And that is about close to 4 acres of 4 different habitats that we offer at the San Diego Zoo. And that is, think of it like our children's zoo. And it's a portion of our zoo that we've actually created working with child psychologists to figure out how do children best learn and get inspired about Mother Nature. So it's an opportunity to climb up to the Tree of Dreams and jump up and down a trampoline next to squirrel monkeys from Costa Rica. Or you can go into the rainforest area and see giant tarantulas or giant stick insects as well. You can climb into a tunnel with naked mole rats. There's so much that we offer. And again, it's a safari park as well. So remember our park areas also and the different nuances of the park in the San Diego Zoo. So just go have an adventure.
Is there anything we haven't asked that you'd like to add?
I think overall, there's so much we've discussed, whether it be San Diego community, Balboa Park, and our 2 conservation parks. But just remember that whatever you do in travel, that you have an impact that affects wildlife worldwide. Not to get too sappy on everyone, but again, wildlife trafficking is one of the biggest issues that are happening around our world, next to drugs and human trafficking. So everything that we do every single day affects wildlife. And an example I give is one that happened to me recently. I have a lot of friends in Belize, and I went out there to enjoy the beautiful community, the wildlife, and I wanted to buy these local earrings. And the seller told me they came from local wood, but they couldn't tell me where the wood came from. And so I did not buy the wood earrings because I know that there are endangered species of trees in those areas, the local Belizean mahogany, that needs protection. So if you don't know where an item is going, don't purchase it. Think twice before you buy a feather, before you buy a seed, even a piece of wood, because you don't know where these items are going. So just think about when you travel, to travel with a purpose, to support agencies, tourism communities that are helping out in a positive way wildlife and not negatively impacting it. So just think about that when you're traveling around the world. And it's easy to do. There's tons of apps and organizations that can help you do that. Coming to visit us at the San Diego Zoo and Safari Park is a no-brainer because 100% that we're doing work all over the world.
And Marco, how do Travel Itch Radio viewers learn more about the San Diego Zoo Wildlife Alliance?
There's so many aspects. So, we connect with over 1 billion people every single year with different mediums, whether it be our 2 front doors, our conservation parks, whether it be our Wildlife Explorers channel that plays in children's hospitals around the country, so that kids that are maybe going through a lot of issues that are not so happy, they can see wildlife and feel good and happy, for instance. They can listen to Amazing Wildlife. I'm co-host of our San Diego Zoo podcast and learn about our conservation stories. Of course, our website, sandiegozoo.org, sdcsafaripark.org, San Diego Zoo Wildlife Alliance.org, and wildlifeexplorers.org. There's a variety of things. And for all the hipsters out there, we also have our social media. So don't forget, we have everything from Facebook to X to TikTok, to Instagram, to YouTube, so many different ways to connect with the work that you're doing worldwide.
Okay, our guest tonight on Travel Itch Radio has been Marco Wendt, the Animal Ambassador for the San Diego Zoo Wildlife Alliance. I should say the Wildlife Ambassador for the San Diego Zoo Wildlife Alliance. Same idea, though. Marco, thank you for being our guest on Travel Itch Radio.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you, gentlemen. Have a great night.
Okay, you too. And viewers, this is the 50th anniversary of the home run that broke Babe Ruth's record for Hank Aaron. And you can see that book with Father's Day right around the corner. Now is your chance to capture the spirit with my new biography, Home Run King, The Remarkable Record of Hank Aaron, featuring a foreword by Dusty Baker. This 265-page hardcover that Roger is holding up explores Aaron's contributions as a home run hitter on and off the field, as an athlete and as an advocate for civil rights. That's Home Run King, The Remarkable Record of Hank Aaron. Get it today at Amazon.com or come to my signings in Cooperstown, June 20th inside the Hall of Fame and July 20th on Main Street in front of Lewis Money Books. from 11 to 1. And that's it for this edition of Travelers Radio. Now, this is Dan Schlossberg along with Roger Noriega saying thank you for your time this time. Until next time, next week, same time, same place. Roger will talk to Lauren Backhouse about Chicago's gorgeous architecture and especially the Chicago River Architectural Cruise, which I loved. I've done it a couple of times. For now, good night and stay safe. And I'm going to try to get our music to work again. You never know, but I'm going to give it a shot. So get ready, get set, and aha, here we go. Takes a while, guys. Thank you, Marco. Thank you, Roger. Great show.